Hello and welcome to the Carlito show, and today finally I managed to get some free time to show you how a Carlando is constructed. Apologies for the delay, but I haven't had any time to make videos. But yes, finally we are here, and today we're going to show you a Carlando and what does it do and what does it go.
To Jurassic Park.
So, first an explanation. A Carlando was based primarily on an idea of making an Orlando, this one, all fancy and stuff, but making it easier to build and a bit more affordable. It doesn't. The Carlando is similar in almost every aspect. The differences are obviously it's not gonna run exactly like an Orlando will, but it will allow you to control it over the internet, and it will pretty much be a crawler for all effects. You'll have to get a bit clever on what terrains you're gonna go with it. It's not gonna be as heavy as an Orlando is, but I think it's quite capable of doing certain terrains if you have the patience for it and if you can set it up in a way that it's gonna be a little bit heavier. So let's take the Orlando away, and the Carlando, we're gonna disassemble it to show you exactly what this is. And it's basically 3D printed body and all the other materials that you see down here. So it has an ESC, it has a servo in the front to do steering. Then it has two servos in the back that act as a motor and they spin each of the wheels independently, but they both spin at the same time because both of them are connected to the one ESC. And then underneath you have the board that controls all of this, and this is called an ESP8266. And this board allows you to connect this either locally or to the internet as you see fit. And you can either play it with your phone locally, or you can even have a friend drive your car over the internet. Okay, so without further ado, we're gonna put this one here to the side. By the way, all the covers are compatible with the Carlando, so if you have an Orlando cover, it will fit on this as long as it's for the Jeep. But you can design your own body. I mean, the pieces will still fit in the same way for all the other Orlandos available out there. And not only that, but the way that we build, so this is basically a receiver. This can also be put in one of these. As you can see here, this already has the same. All right, so let's start with all the parts that we're gonna need. You're gonna need a body base. You're gonna need a motor servo holder. You're gonna need to print, all of this is printable by the way. You're gonna need to print the four wheels that's gonna drive the car basically. You're gonna need to print the adapters for the front, for the steering front, and this is the adapter for the steering, and then this is the adapter that allows the steering to work. Then you're gonna need one of these. This is a 1S brushed ESC. You're gonna need a couple of screws. So these are 2M screws. I think they're 8 millimeters. And then you're gonna need more 2M screws. So this ones you're gonna need 6. You're gonna need 20 millimeters 2M screws, and you're gonna need two 1.5 millimeters and 1 millimeter length screws. All of this you can find in the GitHub page, so all of this is described there. But yes, obviously I'm doing this to show you how it's built. Then aside from that, you're gonna need 3 2.2 gram servos, 3 of them, and finally the controller, which is gonna be an ESP8266. And you're gonna need a computer or a Mac to upload the code that's on GitHub afterwards for this. So how do you assemble this? Quite simple. Let's start first with the steering. So the steering is just gonna require a regular servo. You're gonna slot that servo into the steering compartment here. Oh, actually, sorry, it's on the other side because it has the little screws there. So this way. As you see, you have 2 screw holes on the bottom that should match the screws on the 2.2 gram servos, and when you slot it in, you'll be able to use the screws that come with the servo to tighten up the servo so it doesn't move. So we're just gonna get a couple of screws and place them here, one on top and then another one on the bottom. Remember to put the servo horn on the bottom of the mount, because now you're gonna need a servo arm, and I've used this servo arm here, and it's gonna point all the way down like that. Yeah, right. So that's step 1. Step 2 is you need to grab your wheel, whatchamacallit, front wheel holders, I guess is what they're called, and we're gonna assemble them like so. Yeah, so one on each side, like that, and then like that. And that's where you're gonna use the 1.5 mil screws, and I like to put the them through the bottom. Oh, it's actually easier, a little bit easier when you push through the hole a little bit, the bottom one, and then you slide the screw, or you're gonna screw it. You're gonna screw it through once, and then the second time it should be easier for you to re-screw already with the servo mount in it. Yeah, so you can see here the screw's gone in. I'm just gonna backtrack it. You're gonna put it on this side because it has to go through the back. So that's gonna be that's gonna be the front of the vehicle. This is gonna be the back. So you're gonna align it like so, yeah, and you're gonna screw all the way in. I'm losing screws already. Yep. You have to screw it all the way in with, obviously, this here in it. You need to work it in a little bit. Should slot in the first hole, and then you just screw it all the way in, and when you're done, you're gonna have something that is able to swivel. Yeah, so now you're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Okay, and if you've done everything correctly, you should now have two swivelly sides pointed towards the back, towards where the horn is. They can swivel nice and smoothly. Yeah. So if you can't, you can always sand a little bit of the 3D prints that you've done or you got somehow. But it should be able to swivel nice without a lot of effort manually. So the next step is, and we almost have the front assembly complete. The next step is we're gonna get this shaft over here, and we're gonna get two of the 8mm screws, and we're gonna get them. Gonna get the screws, one on each end of this shaft. Just cleaning it here a little bit. So you do well to get long screws, otherwise they might not reach to where they need to reach. So I'm using, I think this is 8mm length, but it will probably be better if you use a bit higher length. See if we can shove this in here. Yes, good. We got one side there, and now we need the other side. So when you've completed that, you should end up with something that looks like this, and this is what's gonna connect the servo horn to your wheels, basically. So you're gonna slot one of those screws on one side like that, and then the other screw on the other side like that. And then you can adjust the screws if the arms aren't straightened. You can just tighten one of the sides and then test again, make sure that they're both straight on both ends. Tighten the other side as well. Okay, so that should be pretty straight. And when you connect the servo horn, here do you see that little slot just under? It should be right on the spot for you to get your other little screw that comes with the servo and tighten it up directly to the the horn, to the shaft that actually moves the wheels. Yeah, so if you've done everything correctly, you should have now something that is able to move both of the wheels when the servo is moving. And you might have noticed that sometimes my shaft seems to be like poking out a little bit. If that's happening, just heat up the PLA plastic and make sure it covers the bolt here that you've put in. Yeah, so if you heat up just a little bit there with a lighter or something, then you can force the PLA to go all around so it doesn't escape ever. Yeah, so right now you have the front bit completed. It was that easy. Next, we are going to do the rear bit, the rear wheel, which is a little bit more complicated, because you're gonna need, let's put this there, you're gonna need two servos, and you're gonna need to modify them a little bit. So first, you're gonna open up the servo on the bottom, There's one screw on each side. The screw doesn't need to leave completely, that's fine. So you undo both of the screws on the bottom, and you can see it's trying to like open up already. Now be very careful, because there might be a lot of stuff that just tries to jump out from the servo. So you can see the servo is split into 3 areas. The top bit there, and then the middle bit, and then the bottom bit. Yeah, so you can see all the 2 openings there in the middle. So first of all, we're gonna take the top one, and again be careful because parts might come out when you're trying to remove it, so be very gentle. And if you happen to, if this all happens to go out, don't worry, you still have another servo to see exactly how the parts are. But here on this part, we're just gonna need to remove this top bit here. So we can pry it off. You can use something to pry it off as well. So we just take this one out, and do you see that little nub there on the top, on that side there? We're gonna need to chop that off. So we get a little cutter, and we actually there's 2 little nubs there. We just cut them off, make sure the servo on the bottom is nice and flat now. So you should end up with something that looks like this. And we're gonna put that right back where we found them, which is on the yellow little bit there. And what we've done is, also make sure that there's a specific way where you put this. I don't know if you can see, but there's a little nub there that sticks out, so it has to match the little nub that's on this one. So you don't just put it any other way, you have to put it the correct way until it slots all the way down. And that should be like that. Yeah. Alright, so the top part of the servo fix is done, and now we need to do the bottom part. So the bottom part is a bit trickier because you need to take this out, and you're gonna see a little potentiometer there and a motor, and then the cables that go out. That would be the cables that go that connect to the servo. So it's power, ground, and signal. So those cables connect to the potentiometer. The potentiometer, actually it's not the potentiometer, the potentiometer is here inside. This is like a very small ESC, really. And that tells the potentiometer which way the servo is supposed to rotate. But we're not going to use this as a servo, we're going to use this as a motor. So what you will have to do is take away the connection from the motor to this little ESC thingamajiggy bulb here. Yeah. So get you can cut it as well. It's not a problem. You can just cut the motor wires. If I can find one of my cutters, here we go. So see, motor wires. There's 2 wires coming out. You can just chop those as big as you can. Pop, pop. Yeah. And then you're gonna have the little ESC nubbin still connected to the potentiometer. You'll just need to cut these 3 cables. So cut, and this is gonna come out. Yeah. And exposing the potentiometer, which is now not connected. But that's fine. We're not gonna use it for our little motor here. What we're gonna do now is extend with the cable that you just ripped off. I'm gonna cut that off. We don't need that bit as well, but we do need this cable. And with this extra cable, we're just gonna extend the motor wires out of the servo, which is now a motor actually. So we're just gonna take one of the cables off because we don't need it. We just need 2 cables. Which one is gonna come out easier? There you go. Oh dear. Okay. So we're not gonna need those 2 cables, so we can just pull 3 cables. I'm gonna pull this one out, and then we have 2 cables that still stay in, and we have to connect these 2 cables to the motor just by simply soldering them to the motor. So I'm gonna expose the end bits here, expose the end bits here, and we're gonna just connect one to the other. So what we're making here is we're making a motor, really, that is able to spin one way or another way. But instead of using this, where is the ESC that we threw away? This ESC that doesn't really have almost any resolution, we're transferring to this ESC that has a lot more resolution. Okay, so let's take this up from here. Okay, open this one here. Oh. 2 cables now. Expose the wires, solder them. I would advise that you use some sort of whatchamacallit, this shrink tube, so you don't short any motor wires inside of the servo when we close it up. Some solder here. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna put one first. It doesn't really matter the way that you connect to the servo, because you can always change it once you connect it to the ESC. So right now it's just nice to have a connection extension here, and then later on we can worry about, it'd be nice if they actually connect to one another, and then later on we can change it when we're about to connect to the ESC. Nice. Get the other one. Okay. So now that both of our cables are connected, just gonna shrink the tube a little bit here. Someone keeps sending me messages. Good thing this is not a live video. Actually, I could have done a live video, couldn't I? Maybe. Maybe next time. Okay, so now we have our cables there. We can tuck it in the servo, Pull this one out. And you've noticed that I didn't chop this off right away. That's because it just prevents the cable from going. But we are going to chop it in just a sec. So now that we can put this back, just make sure that it's put in the right position. Make sure that it closes afterwards. There we go. And we just tighten the servo back. And this servo is now a motor. And that motor, you will see in just a second, will be used to drive, okay, back together, this motor, which we don't need this anymore. Will be used to drive one of the back wheels. So one of the ones that you've printed is just gonna fit there. That's how it's gonna look. All right, so which way is the front and which way is the back? Good question. So this is towards the back and this is towards the front. That is because you can see this is the old unit here. You're not able to access the USB very well of that unit right there. So by making a little hole in the front, that's going to be a lot easier for you to access the USB afterwards to put in the stuff that you need to put. So let's turn this all the way around. Remember, that's front. I need this. Yeah. And the way that you're going to put the ESCs, or not the ESC, sorry, the motor, is this, the motor part turned towards the back of the car. And you'll notice that even there's a little holes there for the motor cables. So it's going to be very hard for you to get this wrong, because you can put it on one side or another. Doesn't really matter. So we feed this cable here through the hole there. Like that. And you can see again there's some screw-in parts right there, here in the front end and the back, for you to grab a couple of screws from the other servo. And secure the servo to the body. I'm just gonna put one in the back. Okay, so secure the front part as well. Be careful, because this part here especially is very fragile. But once you've done this, you're gonna need to do the other servo as well. Yeah, so we're gonna do that now. There you have it. Now we have the back motor and the front motor. So next, you're gonna need some springs. This is actually Orlando springs, but you can use any type of springs, it doesn't really matter. To set up the next part of the assembly, which is actually putting these things together all in the car. And for that, we're gonna flip this all the way around. Remember, that's the front part of the car. Sorry, that's towards the front. This is towards the back. This is towards the front. This is towards the back. Same here. This is towards the back of the car. This is towards the front of the car. And we're gonna just line it up like this. So the way that we assemble this is simply by getting those 20 millimeter 2M screws, slotting them down the hole there. And if you happen to break this here, don't worry about it. It's just like I have another one here that doesn't even have one. Don't worry, this is just more of a protection to make sure that the screw goes up the right way. But if it doesn't go exactly in the right way, you know, nothing's gonna happen. Your car's still gonna work. So we're gonna put a screw there, the spring underneath, and then we're gonna connect that part to the, you can see that there's a screw hole there. So that screw, if you can, you're gonna connect it to that hole there. And it's maybe easier for you to first put in the screw first without any springs, just to make sure that the hole is working fine, and that will make it easier for you to then screw it in afterwards. So that's a bit better now. Do the same thing on the other side. Yeah. So that one and that one. Now we can put the screw here, top, with the spring. And again, if you don't have, you don't have to buy these springs. You can just get a spring from a pen or something that will also work. That's what I did with the first cars. These springs just make it a little bit nicer bouncing. Okay. That's one of the springs installed. You don't need to go like all the way into the to the end of the spring. The screw doesn't have to come out on the other side. It all depends on how springy do you want your car to feel when you pop it in the floor. Same thing with the other screw. Just gonna put the screw in, spring, shove that screw right in. And see if we can align the screw up there with the hole that it needs to go. There you go. And that's the front of the car installed. Yeah. Alright, now for the back, remember again, this is towards the front. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna get 2 more of those screws, 20 millimeter, and get 2 more springs. If I can detach these 2 together, that will be really great. There you go. 2 of these long screws, one on one side, and that screw is gonna hit on this side, and that screw is gonna hit on that side. Again, spring, oop, jumpy, goes underneath the car, then line up the car, line up the hole with the screw on the top. Not always the easiest thing to do. There you go. That's one side, and then the other here and here. And I wish people would stop messaging me. There you go. So it's looking more like a car now, huh? Looking a little bit more like a car. It has, oh, there goes the wheel. There's a bit more spring to it, a bit more mounts, and you have the back wheel and the front wheels ready already. And if we put in a shell on it, it's even gonna look like a nice little car, hopefully. Huh? Nice. Okay, so that was actually the hardest part. You're cleared of the hardest part. Now comes the other things that you have to do. So this is the SC that you're gonna need, and I've pre-prepared one here already, and this is the connections that you're gonna need to use here just next to it. So let's take this stuff out from here. Just move the SCs here. So the SC is gonna work in the following fashion. The top right, if the SC is placed like this, is gonna be the power for the 1S battery that you're gonna have to connect it. So you're gonna have to get a little connector depending on what type of battery you're using. Remember, 1S 4.2 volts. So in my case, I'm using these type of tiny batteries here, so this will fit right in there. So top right for voltage, second one to the top is the ground, and then the 3 next pins after that on the top are 5 volts out signal for the motor, and then the last one is the ground, and then your motor is going to connect here. But you have 2 motors, you might say, you might ask, well, what do I do with these 4 cables? How do I connect them? Well, that is very good question. Is it? So you're gonna feed those cables through to the top of the car. That's why we kept the cable so long, because you're gonna pick where you want to put your ESC, and on some of my cars I just put it like here on the back, but you might want to put it here in the front, or you might want to put it like here in the back. Just make sure that you have space for the whatever cover for the car you're gonna use. Otherwise, if you put it here and then this bounces off on the car, it's not gonna fit very well. So as for these 4 cables, it's quite simple. Just imagine that each of the cables is ground and voltage. These are very hard to split apart, by the way. There we go, that's 2, and that's 2. And the way that we're gonna connect these is we're gonna connect them in parallel. So we connect 2 reds and whatever other 2 colors you have. And once you've completed it, you notice that, oh, one of the motors is going one way and the other one is going the other way. That's because you messed one of the cables up. So you'll just need to disconnect one of the ESCs or one of the motors and swap the cables around. That's pretty much it. So these motors will only go one way or the other depending on which way the current is being supplied. So if this is the positive and this is the negative, the motor is going to turn one way, but if you flip it around and you go forward, the motor is going to spin the other way. Yes, hopefully that's been cleared enough. Again, if you assemble all of this and then you go like, oh wow, it doesn't, one of the motors is going one way and the other one is going the other way, all you need to do is unsolder the motor that's incorrect, or maybe both of them are going the wrong way, and just flip the polarity around. The motor is not gonna have any issues with that. Okay, so we're gonna on the CSC that I've already pre-done, we have the power, again coming from the battery. And then this 5 volts we're not gonna put anywhere. This signal cable is gonna go to this board, and I'll teach you in a second how that works. And then the other ground is not gonna go anywhere as well. Actually, all those 3 cables are gonna go to this board. And we just need to solder the motor wire there. That should be hot enough. Those motors. And again, these motors are so, you know, have so weak power that it's fine to connect 2 motors to one ESC. Like it won't have any issues with that. So 1. And 2. And then when I like make it so it's easier for me, I just go on the reverse of the ESC and I solder the 2 other ones so that they don't start like peeling off as soon as I apply solder, which sometimes they do. Anyways. So you can go here again, see, that's what happens. You have to be quite quick. You go 1 and 2 again. So we're almost done, believe it or not. We just need to connect now this and this to this board, and then obviously program it. So we're gonna chop this connection up here. You don't need that. I'm gonna get rid of all the stuff that we're not using currently. There's still some more stuff for you to see. Don't go away. And then we're gonna get the ESP32 finally. And we're gonna place it wherever it fits, which is normally right here. So just make sure that the front excuse me, that the front wheel holder front gearing has enough space to bounce up and down. Doesn't really matter if it touches it a little bit, it's not gonna do anything, but just make sure that it's not, this when you put it down is not impeding any of it. So what I like to do is I like to get some double-sided sticky tape, which actually this already has a little bit, but it's so bad and spent, I can just take it off and put some new one. And with some double-sided sticky tape I just stuck it to the bottom, and that's it. That's all it needs. Okay. Should have probably removed the stickiness out of this before the video, but hey, that's what you're working with. Alright, so now we have this, just get some double-sided sticky tape. We put it all the way here. Cut the excess off. Peel this part here off, if I could. There you go. Again, make sure the USB is facing towards the back, just because it's easier for you to program afterwards. And before you place it, just test it dry to make sure that this is not gonna hit on it. And once you're happy with that, you can just place it down. Make sure it's stuck really good. Now, what else do we have to do? We have to connect the front part servo, and the rear side ESCs. And the way we're gonna do is on the board, let me see, where is it? Actually on this side of the SP 8266, there's a voltage in and ground. That's where we're gonna connect the voltage in and ground from the ESC, and the voltage in and the ground from the servo in the front. It's very annoying too. This cable is so thin. That's what she said. Alright, so if we have, oh, this is actually tinned already, that's pretty good. We're gonna need to tin this as well. Okay, and now that we have this all tinned up, remember again, red is positive, so it goes to V in. Then the ESC red is positive as well, so it goes to V in as well. Then the ground from the ESC goes to ground. And the ground from the servo that uses the steering goes to ground as well. Oops. This will happen a lot. Right, we are almost done. So now we're gonna need to connect just a few more cables, and the first one is the ESC, so that yellow cable there, which is gonna go to D3 here on the board. So look for D3 somewhere on this side, and you can find D3 there. So just connect this cable there on D3. So leave that in. And now the steering cable is going to connect in the, which one is it? Let me see. That's next to the ground, so it's D5. Yeah, so steering connects to D5. Again, follow the instructions that are on the, follow the instructions that are in the GitHub to make sure that you're doing this correctly. Right, so that is all the connections that you're gonna need. Now, if you want to add an additional light onto the car, all you need to do is connect the ground of the light to the ground, and you can connect it on this side as well. And then the positive of the light, oh dear, you're gonna connect it to the 6, so the one over. Yes, and that's it. You are completed the task of assembling Carlito. So now just find a nice way for the ESC to stay on top. Put in the cable so they don't get in the way of anything. You can use a little bit more tape here on the top too, double-sided stick tape on the top to prevent the ESC from going anywhere. Yeah. Put it even up there, doesn't really matter. So now for the last phase, which is connecting the wheels, you're gonna notice, if you printed the right wheels, that two of the wheels have a little nub on the back, and then the other two wheels are just regular wheels. So the ones with the nub on the back get connected to the motors in the back, and they should just fit in pressed. You can use the extra screws that you still should. Oh, actually no. Yeah. Well, you can use those screws, or you can use this other remaining screws. Can you? Actually no. I've used the other type. So the servo screws that you can shove directly in there. Otherwise, I think that these screws will be fine as well. And make sure that this wheel is as secure as possible, or the back wheels are as secure as possible to the motor. Then you can either print the TPU wheels that go around this, or you can just use the regular Orlando wheels that should also fit in place. And for the front, slightly different. For the front, you're gonna use these tiny little 10 millimeter screws, maybe 8 millimeter screws, and those are gonna go into the wheel like this, and then they're gonna get screwed into the front nut there. But there is a but here. What you do is you don't screw them all the way in. Let's see if we can screw them at all. There we go. Because the front wheels are simply freewheeling. So if you tighten them up, they're not going to spin. But if you untighten them a little bit, then they should be able to rotate nice and freely. And then all you have to do is slot in one of the other Orlando wheels, or a 3D printed TPU wheel, and the car should slide nice and easily. And when you're turning, then the car is going to turn. Oh. As long as this is connected correctly. Yeah, so I hope that you have enjoyed learning how to assemble this Carlando. For the give me a second. For the installing the for installing the remote XY side of things, so to make sure that your car can be driven either locally or over the internet, please go to GitHub and check how that is done. I've made a comprehensive explanation there in GitHub, so check that out, please. Not the wheels. There we go, nice and straight now. And this one can even go a bit further inside. Not so much. There we go, all wheels spinning. That's it, that's the Carlando. You can also print your covers. I have a couple on Thingiverse. Everything is linked again on GitHub. This is just an installation video on how you're able to install all the Carlando visually. And all the soldering points as well. For the installation of this, again, once more, go to GitHub. All the installation are there. You can access the USB port now by sticking a USB here from the back. In some cases, depending if you don't have like a super thin USB, you might need to take the back wheels off or you can just put in the code before you install it, all up to you. The cool thing about this is basically these two connections, one is for a servo and another one is for an ESC, so you can potentially put this on any type of RC car or any type of vehicle that uses one servo and one ESC, or feel free to modify the code that exists on GitHub and create your own type of device that you can alter. Remote XY, which is the app that then controls how this is going to work, is super simple to work and set up. Again, on GitHub I explain everything that you need to know, and that's pretty much it. Oh, there's an FPV version of this car as well if you want it, that includes an extra servo, and again on GitHub it's explained. It's just connected to the 7, an extra servo for the FPV that goes on top of this servo, so you can look around. Well, that's it. I hope that you have enjoyed and learned a little bit. Please let me know if you managed to do this and if you were able to drive it over at a friend's house. That's the purpose of all of this, is just to share the passion of RC. And now we can do it over the internet anywhere throughout the world, so hopefully you can now too. Thanks, and again, if you enjoyed, why not click here on this little button. You can subscribe to me, and I'm sure there's gonna be like more videos here on this side for you to go and see and watch and stuff. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below. And thank you. Bye.